to the Good Living Now podcast, where we talk to real people about real change leading to real health. I'm your host, Harold Leffall, and on today's show, we're going to have a real and raw conversation with an internal medicine doctor who's also a health coach and an author. She's going to help us understand how we can prevent and reverse chronic illness. Welcome to the show, Dr. Christine. Hey, Dr. Christine, how you doing?
Hey, how are you, Harold?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you on this show. You know, I found out about you on TikTok when you were dropping all these gems. I'm like, who is she? And then I saw that you're a medical doctor. I was like, now, wait a minute. Now I'm really paying attention. I'm like, I need to talk to her because it's not very often we hear medical doctors talking about natural ways of healing your body. So that was really refreshing. And I was so inspired by the things that you were sharing in your journey. So, first of all, I said that you're an internal medicine doctor.
Yes.
What's that? What's that?
Internal medicine basically is everything about the adult. Okay, you have different types of doctors. You can have a pediatrician, you can have a cardiologist that works with your heart. But the internal medicine doctor deals with patients from 18 to 65 and beyond. I'm talking high blood pressure, diabetes, strokes, heart failures. I am a hospitalist, so I work in a hospital. A lot of people ask me what that is. And I say, if you go to the ER and you're sick enough to be admitted, I take over. So anyone you know that's been in the hospital, I direct their care.
Oh, okay. I never heard that term, a hospitalist.
Yes.
Okay. So what led you on your own journey of wellness?
So it started with me. When I was in high school, I was told, and I'm not going to say diagnosed, by a nurse, a school nurse, that I had high blood pressure. I was having headaches and I went into the school nurse, and I say all that to say I forgot about that shortly after because I did not claim that. I didn't even tell my parents about it. I went about
This was
my
in your
life
high school.
when
This
I
is
was
when
in
you were
high
in high
school.
school.
Yeah, they brought me in and they were like, you have high blood pressure. And I was like, okay. So I left. When I was in medical school, I'd always wanted to be a doctor. I'd always wanted to heal people. I started having headaches again. And I was like, oh, crap. I go into the staff doctor. They check my blood pressure and they're like, it's high. They start me on blood pressure medication. And this was traumatizing to me because now I was a patient. I'm learning about other patients and now I'm a patient. But it was a good thing because at that point I was just starting my medical schooling and I was looking at everything from a standpoint of how do I reverse this condition in myself? Because I didn't want to take that medication. I felt like I couldn't start my life like this. And while I was going through all of the classes, we learned the pathophysiology, we learned all the pharmacology, we learned how high blood pressure evolves in the patient and how to treat it. And I just want to know how to reverse this thing.
Right.
Focused on. And what I figured out was when I backtracked on all the habits that led me to it, I was able to get that success in myself. When I did that, I took it back to my family. I did it in my father, my brother, then like family, friends. And then it was like people that heard from people were just bringing folks to me like, hey, I heard you were able to do this in yourself and your brother and your cousin. And can you help me? And then before you know it, it was like one of my friends told me you should just go on live and just start telling people. So that's how it happened. And even as I treat patients, I'm that doctor that sits on the bed and says, hey, we can reverse this, right?
Right.
So I would say, yes, it definitely started on myself and those around me.
So you were in medical school, so that meant you were like in your 20s when you were diagnosed?
Yes. So I can attest to the fact that there's a genetic component to it. I'm living proof of that. When I hear patients say, well, it's genetic, and I'm like, I hear that.
So, and you know what? We hear that a lot in our community when it
Yeah.
comes to things like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and even some cancers. People say, well, those things run in our families. So you're saying that there's a genetic component, but there's still things you can do to reverse it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it begs the question, how genetic is it? And how much does your genetics play a part? And they've theorized that when we say it's genetic, that's about 5 to 20% of the whole piece of the puzzle. So if
Mm,
I told somebody, yes, it runs in your family, but that's 20% of what the outcome is going to be,
mm,
it puts a little
mm,
bit more emphasis on your lifestyle and how you handle those genetics. Because 80% is a lot to move with.
right.
Mm.
And so, how long did it take you to reverse your high blood pressure?
Is in what are the steps?
You know, how long did it take? Like, was it weeks, months?
I would say in the way of months. I believe
Mm,
I saw a lot of progress even within the first week.
really?
And I see that very in a lot of patients within the first week.
Mm,
You see drastic improvements. But then what I would say is to get those results to stick and consistently show you those numbers, it does take time, maybe months.
and what was like some of the things that you did? Because and for you, the things that you started doing, these weren't things that you learned in medical school. These were things that you kind of learned on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
Mm,
experimenting on my own. Now I was taking the learning I was getting. So when I would learn about the physiology and the pathology of what's going on, some of these pathways, I would think, okay, now
mm,
how do we reverse this? You know, if you're saying that this is causing this, how do we mitigate it? And that's where I started, mainly with what we put into our mouths, right? So
mm,
when I learn about what salt is doing to us, and it's not just the salt, it's how our bodies handle salt, it's how our kidneys handle salt, it's how our bodies
mm,
hold on to salt. Then I start thinking, okay, well, if I want to reduce the salt, I want to reduce the water that we hold on to with the salt, I want to increase the potassium. How do I eat? How do
mhm,
I make sure that everything I put in my mouth energizes me and brings me life?
mm,
And
mhm,
then from there, I would go into different aspects of my lifestyle. How active am I? Am I constantly moving around? Am I controlling my stress? Am I sleeping at night? A lot of us aren't even sleeping
mm,
at night, you know?
mm,
I like to say that high blood pressure is like an alarm. When you hear
mm,
an alarm going off, that's a problem. Now you can do several things with that alarm. You can go and turn it off. You can put ear pad, on your ears and muff out the sound, or you can address what's going on. If an alarm is going off because there's a fire burning, it's best to get to it now before it takes over, burns down everything you have. And
mhm,
so that's how I see high blood pressure. Your blood pressures are high because your body is giving you a warning, an alarm that something is going on that you need to reverse. And
mm,
let's not throw medications at it. Of course, medications are great. I'm a doctor. Medications are
mhm,
great, but it's not the lifeline. It's not
mm,
curing anything. It's not changing anything. It's just quieting that alarm.
mm. Wow. And you know what? And it's so interesting because oftentimes when people are diagnosed with high blood pressure, they get on medication and they just typically just kind of accept that this is the way it's going to be. It's like there's nothing that they can do. But aren't there some potential side effects to the medication long term if you're taking high blood pressure medication?
Oh, yes.
Mhm,
Oh, yes. And a lot of times I'll say this. One, don't ever think that what you're being started on as far as medication is all you're going to be on. A lot of
mhm,
times where you start isn't where you end.
mhm,
Because one, your body adjusts and acclimates. And for example, if an alarm is going off and your body's trying to get you to know that something's awry, and then you muffle it, and that fire is still blazing, the alarm is going to find a way to get louder. So before
mhm,
you know it, we started on, like, let's say we started on losartan, 25 milligrams. You go back and, 6 months, well, your blood pressure's still not where we want it to be. So we're going to increase it to 50 milligrams. You go back in
mhm,
a year, it's not where we want it to be. We're going to go up to 100 milligrams. We're going to add a different medication. We're going to add a different. Most patients that I see are on 2, 3, 4 medications. And even then, blood pressures are still high.
mhm,
It doesn't mean you keep living how you're living.
mhm,
And these medications have side effects because now you're putting a substance in your body to override what your body's
mhm,
already doing. it's kind of bulldozing things down. Before you know it now, because of what it's doing in one area of your body, is causing something in a different area. You're
Yeah.
having chest pain now. You're having headaches. You know, it's dilating the vessels all over your body. Now it's dilating them in your brain, and you're having headaches. You're feeling dizzy every time you stand up. You're
Mm,
having fluid in your feet. You're having swelling. You know, these are
mm,
all, you know, side effects that we see with some of these medications that a lot of times doctors, when you complain about these side effects, they're looking at you like, well, we ain't really got much else to do. Now that's not true. That's not true.
mm,
But that's how they're looking at it. It's either lisinopril or nothing. Speaking of side effects, one big side effect, especially in the African American community with lisinopril, is the coughing. And that's
mm,
something I experienced. This nagging
mm,
cough that will not go away. It's just from the
mm,
lisinopril or swelling of the lips. We call it angioedema, and that could be life threatening. So, at any time you're on this lisinopril, between the time you started up to 20, 30 years, it could be a day later, it could be 20 years later, your mouth and your tongue can swell up. And that's a medical emergency. You have to get to the emergency room so they can give you medications to calm that swelling so you can breathe. Now, that's not a
mm.
reason not to take the medication, but it's just something that you need to be aware of while you're on it.
Right, right. And with the high blood pressure medication, can it also in men cause erectile dysfunction?
Yes, yes. It has all kinds of effects on every system. It can
Mm,
even cause people to, when we talk about erectile dysfunction, we're talking about the blood flow. You're talking about pressure and the way your body's able to handle all of that. And then when it comes to performance, medications like beta blockers can make you tired. Now you
mm,
don't even want to exercise. We're not even getting to any kind of uh, interaction that's requiring any kind of erectile
mm,
dysfunction. You don't
mhm,
want to exercise. You don't want to get out of bed. You feel sluggish. You feel fatigued. This is
mm,
from this medication. And imagine somebody that's already probably overweight and had issues exercising that was leading to these lifestyle changes that caused the high blood pressure. Now you're getting a medication that's not going to help them exercise either.
mm,
It's almost like
mm.
a double-edged sword.
Right, right, right. Yeah, a lot of men inbox me because they're going through erectile dysfunction. Because I share my story of when I went through the whole cancer thing, I had erectile dysfunction, and a lot of them are like on medication that is causing them to have an issue in that area. And one of the things that I think is so interesting is because I think intuitively we know how powerful food is and how it can either help or heal our bodies. But it seems like there's still a disconnect in our community about, the power of what we're putting in our bodies.
I would say the reason, you know, high blood pressure, diabetes, metabolic syndrome plagues our community is multifactorial, meaning that there are different factors to it.
Mm,
Yes, there's genetics. I recently learned about, I went to a conference where we talked about epigenetics, which is genetics on top of genetics, which is the things that your mother did before you were born affect you now. So,
mm,
yes, it's genetics. Yes, it's epigenetics. It's trauma. It's what you're exposed to. It's culture. It's your beliefs.
mhm,
It's your value system. Now, when it comes to our community, we talk about our food. We talk about
mhm,
soul food, how we like our food. It's fried, it's smothered, it's blackened. A lot of times it's high in sodium, it's high in carbohydrate, it's high in fat. And then you talk about how this food is meant to bring us together. This
mhm.
food is like a meeting place. And
Right.
we value this food so much
Mm,
so that it's a center part of our life. We're willing to fight with it. We don't want to part with it. It brings us comfort. But this food is part of what's making us sick. So
mm,
it's hard to, you have to dig deep into that belief and that value system and what's been passed down as far as the mindset from generation to generation about this food. Because telling someone to let go of this just out of the blue, it takes more work than just telling them that. It's like deep work.
Right. That is so true. So much of how we socialize is over our food.
Yeah.
And we have memories of certain foods and things that were important part of our journey that, we don't want to let go. And
Yeah.
we think if we let those foods go, we're letting a piece of our history go. You know, Another thing that plagues our community is stress,
Yeah.
and stress and adding to that the addiction to sugar. I think a lot of people are addicted to sugar and they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Talk about how stress and sugar, how that impacts our health.
Oh man. You know, I don't know why people don't think stress impacts their health. I mean, if I had $1 for every time a patient said, "Well, you think stress could do all that?" I'm like, "Yes. Yes, stress can." Stress will release hormones in your body that will
Mm,
make it almost impossible for you to eat well.
mm,
It'll make you impossible for you to rest. It'll make you it's like this never-ending cycle that just is set off by stress.
mm,
Um, hormones like cortisol that will be released in your body that will cause you to store fat in your abdomen
mm.
that will just it's
So it could be that not that you're eating a whole bunch of stuff. It could be that you're stressed out, and that's why you're carrying all that weight
and
on
that's
yourself.
why you're storing it there. A lot of times when we see people with those big mix sessions, is because not how they're eating, it's the stress that's associated with that eating that's
Mm,
causing you to store fat in a different area of your body now. Now, with that
mm,
fat being so close to your heart,
mm,
that can predispose you to heart disease, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, inflammation. Now, when you have inflammation in your body, that is like problems on its own.
mm,
And not only that, we talk about the fat and the central obesity, but stress itself. We've seen times where mothers who've lost a child or been immediately widowed will have immediate heart failure. Hearts will balloon out. We call it myopathy, the heart failure of a broken heart. So stress can immediately affect your heart, lead to heart failure. We call it conversion syndrome, where people will have a stressful event and go blind. It's not
wow.
in your mind. This is stress. You can have a heart attack because of stress. So stress affects us in our lives. It has such a big impact for it to be ignored. Why is it being
Mm,
ignored? Our society is telling us to ignore it because stress makes money. You can't
mm,
eat, buy, spend without working. And you
mm.
can't work if you're not stressed.
Right.
So it's like we're going to downplay the stress so that you can continue to live the life that you're living. Because once you
Mhm,
figure it out and start to slow down, some of these
mm.
companies aren't going to have things flying off the shelf like they want
Right.
to. It's not about a supplement, it's about slowing down and sleeping and relaxing.
That is so true, Dr. Christine. And I think stress is so normalized in our community that we don't even realize that it's stress.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I had been stressed for decades until I got diagnosed with cancer and got into therapy.
Mhm.
And I truly believe that, the stress and the diet definitely had played a major role in my cancer diagnosis. But it was just I remember I would just wake up worried, go to sleep worried. It was just like my norm. It was
Yeah.
normal for me. That's what we did. You know.
Mhm. Mhm. And, sleep as well, right? So a lot of times when you're stressed out, it affects your sleep.
Mhm.
So sleep has a big effect on our lives. We found that patients that even have cancer, if they don't sleep well, it can affect their outcomes. One of the
Mm,
most important things you can do if you have a chronic condition is get that sleep. But a lot of times that's downplayed. You
mhm,
know, you see people with sleep apnea who have difficulty sleeping, and all of a
mhm,
sudden they start off with sleep apnea. Now they have heart failure. Now they have high blood pressure. Now they have diabetes
mm,
because of this constant lack of sleep. In
mm,
fact, you can go on to say that the reason a lot of people are overweight is because of a lack of sleep. Because
mm.
when you don't sleep, it changes your hormones, your eating hormones. You have a hormone called ghrelin, which makes you hungry. Then you have a hormone called leptin that makes you full. The day after poor sleep, that ghrelin goes up and that leptin goes down. You can't fight that. That's why when you have poor sleep, all of a sudden you're looking for everything. You want to munch on anything. You don't care. You feel like I just need a burger. I just need fries.
Right.
You want to control it. Imagine night after night after night with poor sleep.
Wow.
And then you're thinking, okay, well, I need to start a weight loss drug. Yeah, you could do that, or you could sleep.
Or you can sleep.
You try to do anything to sleep.
And then sugar. So many people in our community are suffering with type 2 diabetes, and sugar is like hidden in so many things. So people think they think the obvious, like candy and cookies, but sugar is hidden in so many things that people are consuming and they're not aware of.
Yeah, and it it feeds all the wrong things in our bodies. You
Mm.
know, it, I like to think like a lot of disease processes that run on sugar. And the good
Mm.
thing is the things in our bodies that we need to function properly do not.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's easy to make that distinction of sugar needs to be cut out. And
Right.
we are consuming way too much of it. It's
Mm.
to the point where if you asked yourself, eh, if you ask someone a question, okay, for the next 3 days, I want you to go with zero sugar, they would be bewildered. Oh my gosh,
Right.
I can't do that. Then it's
Yeah.
probably an addiction.
Mm. Right. Right.
If
Right.
you
Right.
can't even conceive it, you can't go a 6 hours without it, then it's something that
Yeah.
probably needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So, Dr. Christine, what do we need to start doing? Say somebody is dealing with high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. What should somebody start doing today to start to get healthier?
So I have this conversation a lot, and what I say is the first thing you got to do is love yourself. You have to look at the person you are and find love for that, who that is. Because when you love yourself, you will do things for yourself that you will just put yourself on the highest pedestal. You'll take care of yourself. You'll put value to yourself. You'll treat yourself well. A lot
Yeah.
of times people go about it where they're like, okay, I don't want high blood pressure anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do all these things. And then it falls out the wayside because they start doing other things like punishing themselves by not eating and punishing themselves by eating too much and punishing themselves by over restricting. And we're still dealing with the core issue, which is somewhere along the line we've lost a love for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So once you figure out how to love yourself, which can be a deep dive, then you peel at the onion and you work on each habit little by little with intentionality. One, I'm going to focus on everything I put in my mouth, and I'm going to do some research and make sure that everything I'm putting in my mouth is adding to me, energizing me, building me up. Two, I'm going to look at some of these harmful habits, these harmful associations I have. Am I staying out late at night, in different places and clubs and not getting sleep? Am I working a job that's not good for me? Am I, smoking? Am I drinking? Do I have any harmful habits? What can I do to work on peeling back those habits? It's not like a shotgun, you know, 3, 2, 1. We make this decision and we're changed because
Right.
it took a lot to get to where we are. It's going to take a lot to reverse it, but that
Mm-hmm.
intentionality goes a long way. A lot of times, people know what you got to do. You got to eat right. You got to sleep right. You got to move around, and we could say that till we're blue in the face. But it's
Right.
how do we get it to happen?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get it to happen, and how do we get it to stick?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes when people start making changes and are trying to eat healthier and live healthier, sometimes on that journey, they start having symptoms that feel like illness, and that scares them to going back to eating and doing what they were doing before. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So it's almost like a withdrawal. Like I like to say, just because your body likes something doesn't mean it's good for you. Doesn't mean it's good for your whole well-being, right? And a lot of times what this consumerism economy has done is it's feeding us stuff that our brain and our palates just like and they like and you're getting it at high doses all the time. So it's almost like a drug that you're addicted to. Then when you take it away, your body could go into a little bit of a panic mode. Like this it's starting to throw a fit. Well, you
Right.
were giving me this sugar around the clock. What's going on now? In fact, people don't know that when you've started to take in a substance, chemical receptors start to change in your body. The way your body is dealing with some of these things starts to change. So, of course, when you take it off, it's going to take a little while for your body to
Right.
readjust. Power
Mhm.
through it. Power through it
Mhm.
because you have a goal. You know, you're getting to your best self, your
Mhm.
better self. You're leaving Egypt to go to the
Mhm.
promised land. There's a lot in between. There's a lot of struggle in
Right.
between, but you got to
Right.
keep your eyes on the prize.
Right. 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 So that's normal. So folks who are trying to eliminate harmful foods, you may feel some difference. You may go through like a healing trauma kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna have, I mean, I've heard people say they have the shakes, they're sweating, they're, when they quit. Now that's a big thing with sugar. They quit the
Mhm.
sugar, and now all of a sudden they're shaky, they're, sweaty, they can't think right, they're having a brain fog. That's one thing you'll hear a lot of. I'm having a brain fog, I can't think, I'm fatigued. Well, that's your body just trying to regulate. It's getting rid of a lot of the receptors it doesn't need anymore. Those receptors are starved. It's kind of like you have an assembly line and they have these catchers mitt and they're catching all that sugar that's coming. And so you're putting
Mhm.
so much sugar at them that they put more mitts. And now all of a sudden you cut it off and all these mitts are like, hey, I'm here. You know, where's that
Right.
sugar we were waiting for?
Right. Right.
Give your body has ways to down regulate all of that. Before you know, you go back to the normal amount of receptors and everything will be fine. But in that interim where you have those receptors and those processes waiting ready for that overdrive that it's used to, doesn't mean
Right.
give up.
Right. Right. Yeah. Keep going. You got to keep going. So, Dr. Christine, you have a new book out. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your new book.
Yes. So this book is called Reverse High Blood Pressure Naturally. And in
Hmm.
this book, I break it down. Like, if you go to my TikTok, I'm very passionate about reversing high blood pressure, reversing diabetes, obesity, cholesterol. And there are a lot of tricks in the hat. As somebody that's been in a physician's chair myself as a patient dealing with high blood pressures, I know the different aspects. Like, you could be on a good path and all of a sudden you have a certain meal and your blood pressures are through the roof. I teach you how to mitigate that,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times once you've been predisposed to high blood pressure, it's not something that's particularly curable.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's controllable. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that you can reverse, but you always have to keep your eyes out for it as
Right.
time goes on. You have to avoid certain environments and foods. So
Mm-hmm.
I teach you what teas you could take that can help mitigate that high blood pressure, which supplements that can help you, which foods you can eat. A lot of times with high blood pressure, we talk about the foods you shouldn't eat. We don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about the foods you should eat,
Mm-hmm.
like avoid sodium, but it
Mm-hmm.
may really be about eating more potassium. So I
Mm-hmm.
give you the diet that you should pay attention to, the way you should, different things like hormones,
Mm-hmm.
menopause, pregnancy, how that can affect blood pressure. I go through it all because a lot of times on my platform, there's not enough time to really delve deep. And I
Right.
want to give people that resource to where they can flip it open at any time and
Mm-hmm.
see at their fingertips what they can do.
Oh, awesome. Now, speaking of social media platforms, how can folks find you on social media?
Yes. So I'm Nwoha on TikTok, ADANWOHA on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. I have a lot of
And
videos, a lot of
that's
content.
where I found you on TikTok doing your thing.
And I'm also working on extending out to YouTube. I'm on Facebook.
Mhm.
Ada Well Med is my Facebook page where I have some handouts, a lot of content, basically material. If anyone wants to dig into that, I'm also on Instagram as well. I have a website, adawellmed.com, that has updates and material there as well.
Awesome. So finally, Dr. Christine, what would you say to someone who is just feeling down and just needs some words of encouragement while they are dealing with a chronic illness? What would you say to them?
You're still here. You got this. If you're still here, you still got some fight in you, and it's not over. Everything you do, you have the ability to, and that's why you're still here. And we can make it a little better every day.
Awesome. We can make it a little better every day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Christine, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.